I lived in Cyprus for over 6 years, but there was one dish I never learned how to bake, and that is a flauna. So I've invited my friend Tonya Buxton along to show me how to do it. Welcome, Tonya.
Hi, Paul.
Now, you've got a full array of Cypriot delights here, as far as I'm concerned.
I thought you might miss Cyprus a bit, so I home-cooked you some things that you would have eaten regularly when you're out there.
Absolutely.
Tonya makes amazing Cypriot food.
Have a look at that.
It's a passion that we share through our association with the island. And together, we're going to make a traditional Cypriot pie we both love.
Now, you're going to bake one of my favourite Easter delights, and it's the flauna, which every village in Cyprus apparently makes the best in the world.
Flaunas are filled pastry parcels that can either be salty or sweet, depending on what village they're made in. I can't think of anything similar in British baking.
Would you like to take over from the kitchen?
OK, I will.
If you need me to do anything, just shout and
I
I'll
do.
help.
Because you're my baker, you're going to make the dough, and this is Cypriot village flour.
I've worked with this a lot.
Well, obviously. So, to it, I want you to add some very, very Cypriot spices.
OK.
So, this is mehlebi, which is the cherry pips.
Right.
OK, so it's the kernels of the cherry pips. They've been ground down.
Yeah, I know the smell.
Yeah,
I've
so
used it a lot.
This is the one that comes from, this is mastiki.
That's right, yeah. That's the gum.
That's the gum. It's the tears. It comes from the island of Chios, and they call them tears. So I want a teaspoon of each of those into the flour.
Can you pass me a teaspoon just in that top drawer there, please?
Yes. And the way that I was taught to make it, and it's not just each village that has the best flaunas, each family has the best flaunas. It's very competitive.
Very.
I like to put a little bit of cinnamon into my flour as well.
A little bit of cinnamon as well?
A little bit of cinnamon in there as well.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Yep.
And then I'll let you go with the rest.
A little bit of salt?
A bit of salt.
OK.
Baking powder, the yoghurt.
Baking powder.
And all of that yoghurt.
All of that yoghurt,
Yeah.
OK.
And then there's some milk to bind.
Now, this dough does have a lot of ingredients, but the result is magic.
So I'm going to make the filling.
OK.
So I've chopped some fresh mint here.
Yep.
Everything just gets put in the bowl. So I'm going to put the mint in. I'm going to add a cup. Oh, this is the main thing to know. In Cypriot cooking, we don't measure anything, as you know.
Yeah.
Everything's done by a glass or a cup. And as long as you use the same glass or cup throughout, it works out just fine.
But it saves on the washing as well.
It does. It really does save on the washing. But not that. But everything's guduru guduru.
Yeah.
Siga, stomadi. And all of these things mean just, you know, kind of try and use your instincts when you're cooking a little bit and do it the way you like it.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
I've got a cup of cheddar cheese, which is the way we English Cypriots make it now, because we can't always get hold of
BBCs.
I'm BBC, British Born Cypriot.
British Born Cypriot. Isn't that cool, BBC?
I quite like that.
After the cheddar, Tonya adds a classic Cypriot cheese, grated halloumi. Raisins will add some sweetness, then a cup of semolina and flour.
And then it's the spices. And again, don't be cheap with the spices. If you go to the bakeries in Cyprus around Easter time, they do all have their own flaunas, but they never smell like the homemade ones.
No.
Because the spices are expensive, and we could always tell if someone was mean. Because if they made a flauna and gave it to you, because you swap flaunas around Easter, if you cracked their flauna and smelt it and it didn't smell of the spices, they were mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tonya's using mastika again and another popular Cypriot flavour, mehlebi, ground cherry kernels.
So I've got the yeast as well that's going in there.
The maya.
Maya. Maya, it's lovely because it sounds like magic, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it does.
Perfect. So that's all of that done. Now I've got a lot of eggs that are going to go in here. Because you've got to bear in mind that these flaunas are eaten after everyone's been fasting for 40 days, a vegan fast. Are you going to do those for me?
No. I'm just standing up, stretching my legs, so I was going to give this dough a bit of a wallop.
OK. Thought it was too much to ask for. All right. So it's about 5 eggs I'm going to put in there. It's a very rich flauna, very rich pie. So I'm just going to beat these up really well.
So that is the main liquid, is it, that goes into the flauna? Egg?
Egg, and then a bit of milk to bind it all.
OK. What do you think of my dough?
It's all right.
OK.
So I'm going to pour that into here, and then I'm going to just give it a really, really good mix. But I think the best way to do it is to put my hands in and get really messy, because that's the way it mixes best. So you just mix that really well. You're going to have to get your hands in there and just really bind it well together.
Right, you need some milk in there as well?
A tiny little bit of milk, just to make it a little bit more. That's it. Perfect, thank you. That's it. What I'd really like you to do is to roll out the dough, please.
Roll out the dough fairly thinly, but not so thin it won't hold the filling. Then, cut out circles. Tonya's little bowl is perfect as a guide.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it and I'm going to press them into the dampened sesame seed. And then to that, you're going to add a tablespoon of the Flona mixture, just like that.
Yeah.
Then you're just going to... You can do triangles, but my family always did squares.
Yeah, it was always squares, always squares.
So then I'm just going to put a little egg wash on top here. You want this lovely little glossy egg wash on the top, and that's why I've put sesame seeds in the egg as well, so that gets onto the filling. And you leave a little hole at the top there so it can swell and open up, otherwise the pastry will crack.
It looks great.
Et voila.
Fantastic. So they're going to go into the oven now, and you've got some...
I have.
...over here. Now, these look fantastic. That is what I remember as a Flona. Now, you can see the sesame seed all the way around. You can see the filling begin to sort of pull that apart slightly. They're just... And they smell so good. They smell of that mastica.
They're not the most beautiful-looking pies, and I know you make much prettier things, but this is proper rustic Cypriot baking.
I look forward to sharing these Cypriot Flonas with my guests later.
It's my turn to do a slightly British thing. Now, this is a raised pork and egg pie, but I'd like you to add a little bit of a Cypriot twist to it as well.
Got a few ideas for that.
OK.
I'm quite proud of this pie. Done right, it has a magic egg running all the way through. The sausage meat flavour is simple and British. Well, it is unless you've invited your Cypriot friend over.
Now, Tonya, I'm going to ask you to do a few little Cypriot twists for this. What have you got for me there?
Well, I bought you some luganiga.
OK.
Which are the Cypriot chorizo, really. Yeah. But it's got coriander and red wine, and they're just delicious.
OK, I'm happy. If you can chop them up and add them to the sausage meat and onion.
OK.
Also, coriander, yes, please, to some of that. And coriander seed.
Yeah.
A little bit of that ground down and in there as well. If you can then throw all that together, that could be the filling for the pie. Now, this is a hot watercrust pastry. In here, I've got my flour, to which you're going to add some salt and some butter. Now, the butter needs to go in, and I'm going to crumb this down, break it into the flour now. And while I'm breaking this in, over in this pan at the moment, I've got some water and I've got a good lump of lard. Now, I've heated that water up. All the lard's melted and it's already in there, ready to go in. That's really, really hot.
The melted lard will soak right into the flour and make this a good, strong pastry that will hold a heavy filling without collapsing.
So I've just crumbed this down. I'm going to drop an egg in there as well, straight in, and we're ready for my water and melted lard here, which I'm going to add straight into the flour, and then begin mixing this, because it can be quite hot. Mix all this in together with the flour. This will bind quite quickly with the egg.
Shall I get on with the mixing with this?
Yeah, please. You've got the onions, you've got the sausage meat, you're going to have your sausage.
My sausage.
You've got the ground...
coriander seeds.
Coriander seed and the fresh coriander as well. Now, what I've got here, I've got the pastry here, and it's still quite warm to touch. Now, I've got asbestos hands, but even that feels quite... now it's beginning to cool off a bit. Yeah, I feel this, Tonya. It's lovely.
That's hot, that's hot. Isn't it? Yeah, it's lovely.
See, and Tonya thinks it's hot. So what you do is you work the pastry a little bit more, and it just brings it all together. Now, you can see straight away, it doesn't take much work. It's come together already. It's really, really warm. Now, the pastry is about right. Now, I'm going to cut a little bit off for the lid. That will probably be enough. And then begin to manipulate this dough with a little bit of flour. I've got my rolling pin here, and you begin to roll it out to line that tin. How are you getting on, Tonya?
I'm done. Already, it's got its...
Quickest I've seen you work.
Oh, it's got this lovely Cypriot mix to it, so it's going to be even more flavoursome than your plain old English stuff.
There's nothing wrong with plain old English stuff.
No, this is true. My favourite foods are English too. That's very true.
I've seen you at the fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
OK. Pop your tin on there. What you need to do is be careful, lift up the pastry, and just dollop it in. Now, try and build it all up. It's quite tricky to work this dough sometimes because it is so hot, it's going to break. It's a fresh, warm pastry. So drop all the pastry in there, get it right down into the corners. Push it up against the sides. Likewise, this side. It's a lovely dough to work with. I love working with hot water crust pastry. That is nicely lined at the moment, but what I'm going to do is just take a knife and trim just a little bit of excess around the outside. That is now ready. If I can take your... Oh, beautiful.
There you go.
Thank you. Now I'm going to start by layering the bottom with this beautiful heady mix of sausage meat right the way down, pack it right into the corners. Perfect. Now I'm going to make a little ridge down the middle, and I'll show you why. This makes it a very traditional sort of gala pie-like. Make a little ridge, and then you get your eggs.
So that must look amazing when you cut through it.
Let's hope so. Let's not build it up, shall we?
Now, how do I get that magic egg that runs right through the middle of the pie on every slice? It's easy, really. Top and tail some hard-boiled eggs and line them down the middle.
Then you get the rest of the meat, and then you pack it around the eggs that you put in there. So again, this seals the whole thing in and stops the egg from moving around. There's a little bit left in there. This is where you get your hands dirty. Don't be scared. Just pat it all down, spread it all over the top. This is going to taste great, you know.
You can smell it. It's the Cypriot spices that I can smell over this side.
Actually, I'm smelling the British pork. And I think it's going to be good, though. We've got our pastry up there. We've got everything's neatly lined. Now we're just going to pop the lid on. Now, we've left a little piece of dough. You've got a little bit of excess there as well. Again, flatten it down, a little bit of flour. Roll it out to the size of the tin itself. That then goes over the top, like so. It grips the underneath, which is just hanging over the lip. Again, another knife trim round. One more, that'll do. Get it down out of the way. And then just crimp it and seal it and push it down at the same time. This will allow it to come out as well. So again, crimp all the way around the outside. 2 fingers and a forefinger. Lovely.
And if you do make a mistake and you do make a hole, I know you don't, but I sometimes do, can you just patch it over with some of the dough?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can with this stuff. It is very forgiving. It's like rubber, this stuff. It's great. OK, got a little piece of dough left over, a little bit of flour on it. Again, this is just a little bit of decoration on the top. Knock out a little piece of dough, roll it out nice and thin. You don't have to do this, but if you want to show off.
And you always do, though, don't you, Paul?
What, showing off?
A little bit.
Me? Me? Never. Now, I've got a cutter in here. Cut little circles out first. 3, 4 will do. And then all you do, halfway down with your cutter, is just cut them like that. So what you're essentially doing is making little leaves. So you've got 4. Push one end, like so. And just draw your knife down. Don't cut it all the way down. And then cut the leaves, just a little couple of veins each side. And once you've done that, I've got some egg wash here, which is basically just a beaten egg. Brush it all over the top. Get your leaves and just pop them on wherever you want, really. Just makes it a little very decorative on the top. Again, brush that, a little bit of egg wash. And that's it. It's as simple as that. That is a pork and egg pie. Now, to bake this, I'm going to pop it into the oven at 200 degrees for 30 minutes, quite high. Begins to cook the inside, sting the outside. And then drop it down to 180 and leave it in there for 1 hour. Gorgeous. Beautiful. And when it has baked, I've got one here that has been nice and cool.
I'm going to hold that.
Try. There you go. Look how solid this is. This is the beauty of hot water crust pastry. And there you have it. Now, what I want to do is show you what it's like inside. So I'll grab a knife, and we'll just cut down, be quite forceful. This is hot watercrust pastry. Hoping they get an egg somewhere down the middle of it. There you have it. There is your gorgeous raised pork and egg pie. Tonya, thank you for the addition of the separate ingredients, but we'll have to wait a little bit longer before we can try it.
This could be a picnic pie or a hearty winter treat as well.